My voice is clear. Can you hear me?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. My name is Jalal Bilbagra, and I am the Digital Program Integration Manager at ELTA, and I will be today the presenter for today's webinar. For those who are joining us for the first time, ELTA, and for those who don't know what ELTA is a virtual university founded in 2020, and it's specializing only in the ELTA sector. Lta Virtual University is the first of its kind in Africa. So we are pioneers as a virtual university, and we're known for our new standards and designs for the English language teaching. We at ELTA, we offer online trainings to promote the teaching profession and to develop and improve teaching standards. And by developing and delivering useful courses, we aim to provide the very best courses to teachers of English in the country and even internationally. Our organization has come a long way from its beginning. This was in last February, and in a short span of time, we have trained more than 6,000 teachers from different countries. We have done 19 webinars so far, but also lots of internal training sessions for us, mainly in the CPD-focused model. And actually, we are doing more than webinars, and all our events are under the CPD strategy. Today's webinar will be presented by Ms. Alisa Dorgarian, and she is an ESL trainer and a fellow applicant at Armenian State University. So today's speaker will be joining us from Armenia. Just let me remind you about some housekeeping measures that you have to follow all the period of webinar, which is going to be 90 minutes for today. So thank you for being patient with us. Just let me remind you that you have to mute your mics and switch off your cameras along all those 90 minutes. And please, for those who are going to be participating in the interaction with the speaker, please just use the hand raising option on your application. So you will be provided today by certificates of attendance with academic credentials. But just let me guide your attention to something that we have noticed in our previous webinars, that some participants are not joining for the full, let's say, duration of the webinar. They might be joining for 10, 15 minutes. So for those who are doing this, we're sorry to say that we are not going to be delivering any certificates for those who do not, remain tuned for the whole time of the webinar. So please, thank you for being patient with us. Just note that after each slide, the speaker or the presenter will be giving you the time to ask questions and to answer also the asked questions. So you will be given like around 3 to 4 questions each. So please, we welcome your participation. And for those shy people, because we are noticing that there are some people who are joining us mainly each and every webinar, but we never heard about them. So please just take the initiative to share with us your experiences and your questions and all your inquiries. And we will be pleased to answer all your questions, whether in the webinar or after the webinar, either by email or by any other means. So please stick with the housekeeping guidance, and thank you again for joining us for today. And the mic is handed over to Alisa. Thank you.
Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening to everyone. Thank you. Thank you for sharing and giving some kind of brief information about me. I'm Alessa, I'm from Armenia, and today I'm going to represent you information, and I want to share with you my experience about developing speaking skills through fairy tales, how important fairy tales are in the process of teaching. Do you see my screen?
Yes, Alisa, we can see the screen.
Okay, thank you. Okay, here we have teaching speaking skills to young learners through fairy tales. And I'm a brief information about, I have my MA in psychology in languages, and now I'm a fellow applicant to pedagogical university. I have more than yes. I participated in different courses where I have shared my experience on different topics like teaching to young learners, to adults of different kinds of topics, and have also published articles according to these conference topics. Today, I'm going to share one of them. Which is called developing speaking skills. I would like to saying very fast. Do we have any kind of ideas, thoughts?
Sorry, Alicia, could you please repeat your questions, because we have noticed that there are some cuts over.
Okay, I can just repeat. What do you think about fairy tales? What are fairy tales in reality? How do you understand? What are they with their structure, with their concept? What are they? Fairy tales. You can also write in the chat if you have, and also you can raise your hand if you have something to share with us. Please be more active, because fairy tales are just going to be such kind of word, mysterious word, which is full of different kinds of rebels, different kinds of wonderful things. And first of all, it's a part of our childhood. Do we have any ideas? Be more brave and say something.
Hello.
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 Do you hear me?
Yes, of course.
I'm Asali Samia from Algiers. I'd like to talk about a fairy tale. It's imaginative stories, not real. So we use it for students, middle school, the first MS. I think it's, let's say we can attract the attention for loving English. because they are talking about things that are not really true, imaginative, that we cannot really get in our real life. So we can encourage them also by asking them to create their own fairy tales, creating groups, different groups, to motivate them, having some new ideas, some new creation, with using different pictures. Of course, we use different pictures. These kind of pictures help them to work. How can you say, in motivating way, and also starting for loving English. So this is, I think, it's very important for me to do it for my first MS student. That's it. This is what we can talk about a fairy tale. Hello.
Okay, thank you very much. It was, yes, it was very interesting, your idea, and I just agree with 100% about it. It can be just a part of our dreams, not only. And do we have any?
Hello.
I hear you.
This is Jamal from Algeria. Can you hear me?
Yes, of course, we hear you.
Okay, I just want to say that I think fairy tales it's a piece of writing that can tell us a story or something mysterious or the supernatural things. I think the best way to work with the fairy tales is to work with the data show on them, especially in the classroom. It's a good thing for the learners to see and read at the same time. That's what happened with the animation and etc. So it's not enough, or in my opinion, it's not enough to read only the fairy tales, but we can use the data show to show the learners the actions, the characters, the different places in these fairy tales. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for sharing. Yes, of course you can.
I'm Sabrina from Algeria. I'm happy to meet you again. I agree with Jamal that the data show is very important in fairy tales and showing them to children. They like a lot the lessons when they are about fairy tales, because it enriches their imagination, and it helps them to have an idea which is better than they have in the books. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you also for sharing. Just another question. Have you ever tried to use fairy tales during your teaching process?
Yes, I have.
Sorry, Alisa, for interruption. Kindly let me remind you again that you have to be muting your mics the time the speaker or any participant is any other participant is speaking. So you are not allowed to switch on your mics only if you are given.
Hello? Alicia?
You can speak. Yes. I hear you. You can speak.
Thank you. I said I have tried this with my pupils, and they have liked it a lot, especially when the fairy tale is, they have an idea about it or they have read it before in Arabic. It means the idea is very near, especially when we have done, for example, the frog and the prince, Cinderella, and other fairy tales. Especially as I have said that with the data show, it's exciting for them. and they like it a lot, and they participate. Thank you.
Thank you, you also for sharing your experience and thoughts. Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
It's Jamal again.
Okay.
I just want to say that fairy tales, it's important because it can help the teacher to enhance learners' critical thinking, to enrich predicting on the learners so they can predict what will be happen next, and also it's important for improve the learners' imagination. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you also.
Hi, Alicia.
We have...
Hello. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
So I'm from Nepal. Fairy tale. I use the fairy tale to teach my students. So when I start teaching by using the fairy tales to teach the story, especially the literature, the students get more excited. They feel to study, and also they get what entertaining while in the class rather than going into the books. That I found by using the fairy tale. Elisa, thank you very much.
Thank you also.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. I'm Sondus from Algeria. The role of fairy tale in learning or acquiring a foreign language was demonstrated lately by Krashen. I have seen or I saw his intervention 2 days ago, and he said that fiction stories have been proven to be very efficient in enhancing the learning or acquiring a foreign language. So this is what I wanted to say, and I'm eager to see what you have to present to us and how to introduce fairy or fiction tales to our pupils.
Okay, thank you.
Hello again.
Hello again.
May I add something?
Yes, of course, you may.
Thank you. It is said that if you want people to love you, love what they love. And since children love fairy tales, it's something which is very important for them. If you are doing this, they are going to love the language, they are going to love their interaction, and love also the teacher. It means it's very important. It's very, very needed to introduce fairy tales in lessons. It helps a lot. Thank you.
Thank you also.
Hello.
Okay. Yes, of course.
Hello.
We hear you, please.
Okay, my name is Unaf Bashir. I am from Algeria. Your question was about teaching or dealing with the learners with fairy tales. I think that in Algeria, the teacher is guided by the program or the curriculum. So since now I haven't faced program dealing with the fairy tales. So the teacher is allowed just to do it with the tutorial session. It's okay that the fairy tales is a space where the children or the learners can graft their imagination and create something valuable or develop their critical thinking. Yeah, for me, it's good. That's what I have to say. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Onaf. Just let me read some of the comments that some of the participants they have shared regarding Alicia's question. So we had Amina Trilki. She said that fairy tales makes children think and it helps them to express their ideas, even they are imaginary. So by this way, the child is practicing the language, mainly the 4 skills together. We have Nilam Yogesh said, fairy tales help young learners to connect with real world in an imaginary way. We had also Wahiba, who said, we learn more about the language through stories. So thank you both Wahiba, Nilam and Amina for your valuable comments. Also, Alicia, could you please turn on the full mode screen?
Yes, of course. Now I shall share it. Do you see my screen? Do you see it?
Yes, Alisa, we can see it, but it's not yet on the full screen mode.
Okay, let's do. Okay. What about now?
Hello.
Hello.
I have a suggestion. You can turn on sharing from the whole desktop so that you can operate the whole screen.
Okay, just a minute.
Try it.
Mm-hmm. Do you see my screen or not?
Not yet. We still cannot see it. Alyssa, please. So you just need to beam the presentation. If you pass over the beaming mode on the top-down banner of your presentation, you will see that dial of plus and minus for kind of zooming the presentation. Then there is kind of the first icon on the left side of the minus stumpen. You click on it there, then you're going to be beaming the whole presentation with the full screen mode. Thank you. Okay, now we can see the screen. You just need to beam it like you did some hours ago. There is a kind of an icon on the left side of the minus sign when you're zooming your presentation. You click on that button to beam your desktop or to beam your PowerPoint. Then you will be able to have a full screen presentation monitored only by Control Manus. Right there. Yes, that button exactly. Hello, Alisa, are you there?
So waiting Alicia's screen to be fixed, just let me remind you once more that you don't need to switch on your cameras because this is not required. Also, let me remind you that those who are logging in with unknown usernames, please try to log in with your account, I mean Microsoft Teams accounts, so that we will be able to gather your names for the certificates delivery. Thank you.
Do you see my screen?
Yes, we do see it now. So you just click on that button exactly to beam your presentation. Then you can carry on, Alisa.
Is everything okay now?
Yes, everything is okay. You can proceed. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Now, before starting, thank you. I just want to thank you for all your opinions and ideas that you have shared during this session. Now, I'm going to represent you, first of all, the objectives of the workshop. What are we going to do? First of all, I'm going to represent the main peculiarities of teaching speaking skills through fairy tales as a constructive approach for young learners. Because while we are teaching, we have different kinds of approaches, methods, ways which we use, try to find the best, the most optimal way for teaching young learners. Because if we deal with young learners, there can be different kinds of difficulties. That's why we have to choose the best one in order to have not only to score highly, but also to have a positive result in the end of teaching process. And also we are going to utilize fairy tales in English language teaching classrooms as practical aspects, and also to set up a complex of activities to practice the speaking skills by using of fairy tales for teaching young learners. Because during my session, I'm not going only to represent methodological ways or methods or something that refers to the theoretical part, what are fairy tales, etc. But also in the end of, okay.
Alice, I'm sorry for interrupting, but we cannot see your screen. There is only half of the screen appearing. So please follow my instructions, actually. This is Hisham. So you need to beam your presentation, which means there is a kind of that style of plus and minus of the zoom in of the presentation. Then on the left side, there is a button which is called beaming. So you click on that button, it's kind of a cup. And once you click on it, you're going to be on a full mode presenting screen. As long as you do that, you're going to be absolutely fully presenting, and every one of the participants is going to be able to see the whole content of your presentation. Thank you once more, and sorry for disturbance.
Okay, thank you, but maybe there is some kinds of problems. That's why when I'm just want to represent, to join, it's not active, that's why. What about now?
Lovely.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah, we can actually see.
Okay. Now about the fairy tales, in order just to activate you, I have just tried and included some kinds of animations about taken from different kinds of fairy tales in order not only just to be interested in this topic, but also to give you an opportunity just to remember your not only your childhood, but of course the most famous fairy tales that you have watched, that you just watch now, and you will watch just. First of all, what are fairy tales? We have different kinds of ideas and thoughts from you, but now I'm going also to represent some kind of my ideas that I'm going to represent, to share with you. Fairy tales, they are just a part of oral speech and stories, which are used to tell us about different kinds of things and traditions. At first, they were first oral, then they now are written and can have sad or happy, and etc. Fairy tales are also have their own national characters because there are fairy tales which can be known all over the world, but also every nation, every country has its traditional fairy tales. While reading these such kind of fairy tales, you can just know, you can just get acquainted with their tradition, culture, cuisine, etc. They are considered to be as a genre of children's literature, etc. What do you think about the fairy tales? Are they necessary, for example, to be included in our textbooks when we deal with young learners? Are they necessary, or we just can have only short stories and there is no need to include fairy tales in the textbooks?
Hello, can I speak?
Yes, of course you can.
Yes, fairy tales are of course very important, but I guess that short stories will do the thing for young learners, especially if the fairy tales are not very famous.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you.
Yeah.
Do we have any other ideas that you would like to share with us? Don't we have?
Any other one who
Can I
would
share,
like to share
please?
with us?
Can I speak?
share, please?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, first of all, fairy tales reflect the traditions and culture of each country. They are withdrawn from the history and the stories of our grandparents and our grandmothers, and they are a reminder of the close-knit relationships in families or even empires. Okay, so that's why children are mostly affected by them because they relate to them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I speak, please?
Yes, of course.
Okay, Nago Mustafa from Egypt. I think fairy tales can improve the skill of listening, and the more you listen, the better, and the more you speak. Through listening, they can have more vocabs. They can develop their imagination, and when speaking, they can use what they have listened.
Okay, thank you.
Many thanks.
Thanks. Okay, let's go for it. Here we have the structure of fairy tales, because while analyzing the structure of fairy tales, they can be found and describe the elements which are the main characteristics and features of every fairy tale. It's very important to define the borders and also the main features for developing the pupils' knowledge about them during English lessons at school. As one of our scientists about linguistics, Tolkien, mentioned in his work, it's very difficult to define the borders of fairy tales because they are the real. That's why it's very important to know the peculiarities and also these elements. In this structure, in this picture, I have described and represented the structure of fairy tales. Having just the fairy tale as the main elements are stories, places, and characters. According to this, I have subdivided the main also other elements which, for example, if we have stories, it can be from from the point of movies, books, or can have just happy ending or wonderful, or just can be joined or mixed with Disney. Or if we have about the characters, the main characters, that can be king and queen, which is animals, prince, divide and princess, dividing them into negative and positive characters. About the first main characteristic features about fairy tales are that every fairy tale has special beginning and ending, which can be or bad with bad or with happy with sad ending. Place of time fairy tales are also known, and because place and time are unknown in fairy tales, or the names of places are just invented. If we have some kinds of, for example, national fairy tales, here we can face through some kinds of events or some famous men who are the heroes of that country, and there are the heroic stories can be mixed with, can be included in the fairy tale. And in this case, the place and the name of fairy tales can be known. The main characters mainly are poor girls or poor boys, princes, princesses, etc. And mainly in many fairy tales, the hero or the heroine wants to do the life better, or he or she struggles against the negative characters and tries to find ways of winning. Every fairy tale has something magical, which can be negative or positive, and helps characters to win. And also, fairy tales features and characters helping to know different countries' culture and traditions better. Because there are some kinds of fairy tales which are unknown, but if we read, we can in details know something about that country, its traditions. Now, according to this structure, do you find if we have this kind of structure and if okay, please unmute.
Sorry,
Please
Khaled,
mute your.
could you please mute your mic so that you do not disturb the presenter? Thank you.
Now, about the question. According to this structure, what do you think? Is it a good example to represent the students in order to know more information, or in order to give them a good opportunity just to know fairy tales better? It is a good way to give students this structure in order to know the elements and also the structure of fairy tales better.
Can I speak, Alicia? I'm from
Yes,
the
of course.
I am Rajan.
Sorry for interruption.
I think
Sorry, Mr. Rajan, but please, as we have mentioned earlier at the very beginning of the webinar, please try to stick to the housekeeping rules by raising your hand before interrupting the speaker, and do not speak until you are given the turn. Thank you again for your understanding. Go ahead, please, Rajan.
okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So then, so in the next step that I will do. So what I want to mean over that, that the elements which are talking about the what important place and the what names of the people to be given in the fairy tale, that is important for the students, because the students will know about it also, and they are very interested to hear the story about that I come to know from my students about animals and some of the princes and the prince story. That means the, like, I mean, the brave people and the prince and the princess story, as well as the what animals story. They are very keen to listen, and they are very keen to listen, as well as they find interesting to read also. So that I find over there. And whenever we talk about this what prince and the prince
Hello? Hello? Did you hear me?
Yes, Sanat, we can hear you, but we are not sure if Alisa hears you. Alisa, could you confirm that you can hear us? So we can see that Alisa cannot answer your questions for the moment. Thank you for being patient. Meanwhile,
Okay.
we can see. Hello?
I just want to suggest, hello, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for interrupting you,
It's
but
fine.
I suggest
Carry on.
probably if we can, okay, if we can, for example, to send the message through writing, because I think the sound is a little hard right now, or the connection, I don't know. And even I don't know, Alice is listen to us. I don't know.
Yeah, actually, it's disturbing the speaker once you open your mics without getting permission. So just be patient, please, because you are going to be given the turn to speak after the slide, or unless the speaker asks you questions or asks your interaction, you are not allowed to unmute yourself. Thank you for understanding.
Okay, I am here. Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
And what about my screen? Do you see it?
I see your screen, but I don't see your present. Right now, I see your presentation.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I don't know who's the person speaking. Hello, I don't know who's the person speaking, but please remain to be as a participant and leave the job of a moderator to be doing by the moderator. So please leave Jalal, who is the moderator of today's webinar, is going to make sure responding to Alisa, is going to make sure coordinating the events happening over. So please keep your mics mute until you get things going on. Thank you very much for your understanding. This is really about them to getting over, not bothering the speaker, as well as not getting distractions to the event. Thanks a lot. Alisa, it's back to you, please. Jalal, back to you.
Thank you, Hisham. Alisa, you have the mic. You can carry on. Thank you. Sorry, Alisa, if you are speaking, we cannot hear you. Could you please confirm?
Okay, do you hear me now?
Absolutely, we can hear you. And yes, we can see your screen as well, and it's on the full mode. Carry on, please.
Okay, thank you. But I was thinking about the teaching through fairy tales because it's another word, and teachers of English language, while using fairy tales as an instructional approach, represent the richness of experience in the target language and culture. Choosing a fairy tale, the teacher should take into account the length and also the complication of the fairy tales according to pupils' abilities and age, language level, interests, and also preferences. There are some points concerning the importance of usage fairy tales in teaching process. The first one is that children are able to enlarge and purify their vocabulary and evolve a stock of linguistic contexts and structures because there are different kinds of fairy tales which gives them an opportunity not to know new words which can be remembered very, very well. If they just can, sometimes pupils just to mix them, to match them with a hero or heroine or just an important event. And it gives them a good opportunity just to remember the word very well. The next one is represents the richness of experience in the target language and culture. Moreover, fairy tales provide the chances and opportunities to service folklore skills, and its development and value linguistic context structures everything. Because in reality, fairy tales are such kind of storytelling genre which reveal language from a unique and interesting point and gives another kind of opportunity to know it more better. Now, about the teaching through fairy tales, what do you think? What other aims can be when we choose fairy tales, let's say, as an approach for teaching English to young learners? Are they effective or not?
So I think the question was clear. So whether you have used the fairy tales before and what is the importance of implementing like fairy tales to your teaching? So could you please just share your experiences? For those who are used to, yes, Moise, go ahead, please.
Please, so can you hear me, please? This is Moise from Nigeria. In Nigeria, we use fairy tales even before the advent of education, because our forefathers they used to share our stories, and in those stories we do gain moral characters. So fairy tales can be used to impart moral characters in our children, to increase, to improve how they relate with their immediate environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Moise. Let's hear from Omar. Omar, you have the mic. You can proceed with your question, please.
Hello, I'm Omar. I'm from Egypt. Well, I've always shared, actually, always used like fairy tales in my teaching because I think that when you use like fairy tales, it you give the students emotions, like by teaching them something. Like, for example, oh, someone is happy, someone is whatever. And when you connect words with emotions, they memorize it. It tends to stay in their mind way more than the classic way of teaching. And yeah, basically, they always have fun while learning using fairy tales. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Omar, and thank you all for using the hand raising option. Maybe for those who don't have this option, you can please just submit your question to the chat thread, and we will make sure that we will transmit to Alicia to answer your questions. And if not possible due to the time, we can answer you later on. Maybe we can take one or two other participants. Huda, the mic is yours. You can ask your question, please.
I think teaching students or young learners through fairy tales is very important, as it can increase their imagination. First, also students or learners have the opportunity to comment on characters, so their vocabulary store can be increased and be rich, very rich.
Also, it develops the speaking skills to them. Furthermore, afterwards, we can ask them to summarize, to talk about any moral lesson they learned from the story, and so on. It's my point of view concerning teaching through fairy tales. Thank you.
Thank you, Huda. Alicia, please, is it possible to have one more or two participants before we carry on?
Can
Hello, Alicia, we can't hear you actually.
No, I'm here.
Okay, so let's hear from Muhammad Al-Qari as the last participant, please.
Okay.
If not from Muhammad, from Jamal.
Yeah. Can I speak?
Yes, please go ahead, Jamal.
Yes, thank you. From my little experience, I just want to say that teaching through fairy tales is a good way to send a message or teaching morals or values. For example, teach learners how to be honest, how to make a real friendship, how to be a good person in society. I think it's a good way to teach some values. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. Do you hear me?
Yes, Alisa, we can hear you very well.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. Now about fairy tales, its significance, and also about its importance for using them during our English teaching process. Fairy tales have a big role in English lessons because the stories and fairy tales for children include many useful things for teaching the language through the literary poetic text. Usually such kind of there are included different kinds of activities, and these activities and methods are easier and more effective for all ages and language levels. With their worldwide popularity and rarity for every student and learner, because we have some kinds of fairy tales which are known all over the world, and it gives us an opportunity, an effective, let's say, opportunity to go and to represent it from another side. Fairy tales, why teachers should use fairy tales in their teaching process. The first one is integrating language and literature. It gives an opportunity for to mix language and literature, especially if this fairy tale is very known to pupils. It's an effective way to learn the language, not also from the point of vocabulary, from the point of methods that we are going to use for it, but also to know the language better and also at the same time be acquainted with the literature. The next one is about valuable authentic material. They are very good one because this gives us information about the travel timetable, city plans, forms, or just cartoons, advertisement, newspaper, or magazine articles. We can use different kinds of authentic materials in order to teach the language. We also had culture experience. As I have mentioned, about the cultural experience, it gives us an opportunity to know, to get acquainted with different kinds of cultures. and know about their tradition, culture, cuisine, hero, because we have some, for example, it can be Japan or Japanese or Chinese or Russian traditional fairy tales, which gives us the history of that nation, about their country. We have also about the language enrichment. Language enrichment is another point of it. Reading literally works exposes the student to many functions of the written language. Language enrichment is one of the benefits often sought through literature. While there is a little transfer or doubt that extensive reading increases a learner's receptive vocabulary and facility transfer to a more active form of knowledge. It is sometimes objected that literature doesn't give learners the kind of vocabulary that they really need. But on the other hand, this language enrichment involves such kind of words or vocabulary which can be remembered or which can be taught very well than using other methods. Personal involvement, this part is very important because it gives not only to get acquainted with a fairy tale, but also it makes students be more active, be included in the fairy tale. Because when we read, when they listen, when they watch the kind of cartoon about a fairy tale, after it, they try to retell, to represent it. In this case, pair works or group works or role plays are the first place of representing and also to show that they have understood the fairy tale. It gives them an opportunity just to know the fairy tale and have their personal involvement about it. Maintaining interest and involvement. It's another part about the fairy tale because literature can be helpful in the language learning process because of the personal involvement it fosters in readers. For language teacher, materials must concentrate on how a language operates both as a rule-based system and also a social semantic system. When a novel, play, or fairy tale is explored over a period of time, the result is that the reader begins to inhabit the text. He or she is drawn into the book. It gives them some kind of interest. They are interested in this and they just want to know more and more things about the fairy tales. And while representing these points and to think about, I was just interested. It was my opinion about why should teachers use fairy tales for teaching. What do you think about this one? Why should a language teacher use fairy tales for teaching? Or do you agree with the points that I have represented you? Or there is some kind of point that you would like to add to this chart, to this picture? Do we have any kinds of ideas, thoughts? Please share your thoughts and ideas.
Mr. Rajan, you have the mic. You can say or ask whatever you want. Thank you. So waiting for for some participants to share with us or to answer Alisa's question. We had also some interaction through the chat thread. Mainly Wahiba Sharifi, she asked how to use the fairy tales into classes, at what stages or levels. So this question will make sure that Alisa answers your question. We have also Rajini, who said that to teach learners fairy tales, it depends both on age and level. And he said again that fairy tales supported with visual aids are helpful to young learners. So just let me make sure that you understood the question of Alisa. Could anyone, or in other words, could you please, Alisa, just repeat your question or paraphrase it? I mean, in other words, so that maybe the participants can get it better. Thank you.
Yes, of course. I have just asking about why should teacher use fairy tales in teaching process, and I have represented some point about my sharing my opinion and experience, and asking them if they agree with me or do they have any other points to add to this chart that I have represented.
Yeah, so I think that now the question is clearer. So Nirveen, could you please unmute yourself and say what you want to say?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, sir. This is Nirveen Safwat from Kuwait. I think that all of your aims or objectives in teaching fairy tales or using fairy tales as an effective tool in teaching the language are very good, but I have an addition. We can introduce past simple tenses or grammar issues to the students in a fun way. For example, by learning about a fairy tale, I can introduce several adjectives, comparatives, superlatives in a context, in a live context that makes the children interact with them in a better way. Of course, this is provided with using videos or short songs within the fairy tale itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Nirveen. So just once more, the question was more about the objectives behind using the fairy tales into your teaching. So it was like what objectives or what aims behind the use of the fairy tales? I mean, what attainments that you are planning to get at by the end of your lessons? Mr. Rajan, go ahead, please. The mic is yours. Well, it seems that Mr. Rajan cannot hear us. Mr. Moise, you can ask. Or say.
Yes, thank you very much. This is Moise from Nigeria. I strongly agreed with Alisa with all the points. So what I want to add is can use fairy tales to improve the listening skill of the children. Can use it to improve the listening skill of the children. Can show them videos, and after that video, we can ask questions. How they understand, how are they able to comprehend and listen to the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So let's take one more participant. Ms. Sundus, you can go ahead with your question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So another use of fairy tales could be outside the classroom. It means projecting what we do inside the classroom, outside the classroom. So we can, for example, ask pupils. So, for example, we read fairy tale, and the moral behind it is helping the others. So using this moral into helping other people who are outside and who need our help. So it can be anything, for example, for the family, yeah, any moral behind this fairy tale can be projected outside the classroom, means in social life, and this is also the role of the school and of teaching another language. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all the participants for your comments and odds to what Alisa have said. So due to the lack of time, we cannot give the turn to all the participants. So we hope you understand this. And meanwhile, kindly submit any comment or any question on the chat box, and we'll appreciate that. Thank you. Alisa, you can go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. I'm going, as I have represent you, that about the theoretical part, after such kind of acquaintance of what is fairy tales, what fairy tales are, and why are they used in teaching process. In the end, I just want to share with you some kind of activities in order to develop speaking skills through fairy tales. But besides, before starting and representing them, I just want to say that I have included speaking some kinds of activities which are just for developing speaking skills, but in some activities I have just matched not only speaking skills, but also developing speaking skills through listening, through reading, or through writing, because all these four skills are very necessary when we teach. When we try to teach something to make our students be active, be interested in our subject, especially if we deal with English language. That's why, in order just to have some kind of activities to be more interesting, I mixed some of them. Now I'm going to represent you some activities, and also before starting and giving typical examples about them, I want to represent you some kinds of points which are used, or let's say main points of fairy tales, in order to just to have them to be used in the teaching process English to young learners. First of all then is brainstorming, because when we have some kind of topic and we want our students to get involved in this topic and also to be interested in it, because their effectiveness and also the positive result that we are going to have in the end of the lesson is about how useful the topic was and how much knowledge do the pupils get after this. That's why brainstorming is, let's say, a good, one of the best variants in order to make our students to get involved in the topic. Brainstorming gives, depending on the context, it can be individual or group brainstorming, and learners generate ideas quickly and freely. And especially when we have some kind of free tales, they can say everything that they just think or they can just imagine at that moment about that fairy tale. The next one is discussion. Discussions also are very important. If brainstorming, for example, we can use even with 3-4-year students, or let's say kids. Discussions we can use if our students are elder than, for example, 3-4 years old, because they have to speak, to share their experience and thought ideas about the hero, about the heroine, about the event, etc. The next one is picture narrating. It's very useful one. I shall share some kinds of examples about picture narrating. It's a good one because it helps students just to with just to match, to create a story, the full story, according to the source, to the some kind of episodes that they have seen or just have listened about that fairy tale. Even if they, for example, can say only one word about one piece of picture, it gives us an hope that the student has understood about the fairy tale and has something in order if he has difficulties with telling, if he has lack of vocabulary, in this case, with narrative pictures, he can give about something that he has understood, the fairy tale. It is connected with picture describing because after narrating, they have to describe. If we have some kind of kids about 3, 4, or even 5 years old, they can just with picture narrating. Actually, they can even tell or say something. But if we have picture describing, in this case, they can just have one episode that they have seen or have listened and imagined. They can just describe this episode. Next one is point the differences. It's a very good one because it gives not only, for example, children to listen and to do every instruction that is given by the teacher, but also from the psychological point, it gives an opportunity to know what kind of attention do they have. Are they concentrated on the topic or not? And to know everything, every detail about their favorite hero or heroine. And about the story completion. This is used especially in the end of the session because in this case, when they have some episodes or they have listened to the whole story, according to it, the teacher can give an episode from the some kind of any fairy tale or from the fairy tale that they have read or listened and ask the student to continue it. It also gives them an opportunity to speak. And also the storytelling, which is mixed with story competition in some cases, and in this case, give them an opportunity to tell it. And of course, one of the main effective ways of developing speaking skills is role play. It's a very interesting one because when students have their roles and could act like their favorite hero or heroine, in this case they do everything. They imagine, they try to use the whole context of vocabulary that they have learned during this fairy tale, during reading, listening, or just retelling from their teacher. They can use everything in order to have an opportunity to play, to act like this. Now I have some represented some points. What do you think? Is there any one of them that you just use during your lessons from the point of fairy tale? For example, if you have fairy tale in your textbooks, which point of this you can use to develop speaking skills of your students? Please share your opinions.
Yes, Jamal, go ahead, please. Please make sure that your answer will be to the point of the question, which is about speaking mainly, about the materials that you can be using to develop the speaking skill to your learners. Thank you.
Hi. I just wanted to say that, as some participant mentioned before, within the Algerian educational system or the curriculum or textbooks, we rarely find some fairy tales. So the teacher have to select or pick up some fairy tales for his own class or lessons. Yeah, thank you. I just want to say that.
Thank you so much, Jamal. So, Alisa, before you carry on your presentation, I just have picked some very, very relevant and very important comments on the chat thread. We have here Widad Sakhri that said, if you want your children to be intelligent, read them fairy tales. If you want them to be more intelligent, read them more fairy tales. This was said by Albert Einstein. So absolutely. Omar Khalid, by his turn, he said, fairy tales are a complete material to teach all language skills plus grammar. You can teach grammar inductively plus expressions and vocabs. Not to mention that those expressions and vocabs get stuck in their mind as you connect it with emotions, and as proved scientifically that when you connect emotions with a memory, it would be really hard to forget it. So thank you, Omar, for this kind comment. I've seen that also Mr. Panchali Moitra, and thank you so much for your valuable comment when he said, objective of fairy tales are to teach moral values to children. They get an opportunity to reflect on positive, constructive one. And I've seen that most of the participants, they agreed with this. When Katia Rajab said, we can teach the story elements and support their writing skills by asking the students to write their own stories. Thank you very much, all the participants, to your valuable comments. Alicia, the mic is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing, because it's very important to just to share your experience and thoughts, knowing that there are you have colleagues from all over points, from all over the countries of the world, who can share with you with their ideas and experience, and also give some kind of let's say critical, some kinds of ideas about, maybe in some cases it will be very, very useful. Now I am going to represent you some kinds of activities which I have used during my practical part, because when I just was exploring this topic, it was my aim was not only just to explore, to have some kinds of information, knowledge about teaching, about developing speaking skills through fairy tales, but also to have some kind of practical activity which can be used during the teaching process. It can be like some kind of supportive ideas or thoughts or just activities which can help teachers to organize and to have more and more interesting lessons, in order to get acquainted not only with fairy tales but also teach and give students to learn something. The first one is putting pictures in the right order. It's very good one, because it has, as an example, first of all, I just want to share that I have chosen Cinderella because nearly every child knows about this fairy tale, and it's very favorite one of the favorite fairy tales. And while watching, while listening, while reading, some kids, nearly all of them have different kinds of ideas and thoughts, and also their personal ideas about this. That's why using this fairy tale, it gave me an opportunity just to get more positive results, and also to have more interesting lessons for where my aim was developing speaking skills. It encourages pupils to remember, not only to remember the fairy tale, but also to retell it in pictures. Because as I have mentioned, when that an opportunity just to matching some kinds of pictures with it, the child tries to remember, tries to put them in the right order, having the whole. If there is some kind of episode that he may forget about it, he can just remember according to these photos, and it gives them more confidence just to put them in the right order and to represent the whole story. Just a question I can share and I can give, or I think it will be very suitable, maybe, or effective if I can share all these activities and in the end, we can just have a discussion about these activities that I'm going to represent you. Will it be okay?
Sorry, Alicia, could you please just repeat your request or your?
No, it was just a suggestion. I'm going here in my presentation. I have 5-6 exercises which are going to develop speaking skills. In order just not to stop to discuss, I want to represent all these 6 activities, and in the end, we can have general discussion about these activities.
Absolutely, Alicia, go ahead, please, because I've seen also some participants, they were asking from genuine, let's say, fairy tales or examples of fairy tales from different parts of the world. So if you can also just mention this as well. Thank you.
Okay. The next one that I'm going to represent is here I have connected the listening and drawing part because our aim was to enlarge and listening skills as pupils listen to the teacher's instructions and try and draw. After drawing, their objective was just to represent. Here I have a picture which was drawn by one of my students when I was doing lessons. In the end of the fairy tale, here also we have Cinderella. I asked my students to draw something and then tell me what is it about. For example, in this castle, when I asked the pupil, why haven't you drawn in this way about the houses? Because I tried not to analyze from the point of how they speak, how they imagine everything, but on the other hand, I try to analyze everything from the point of psychology. And my student just answers me that it is Cinderella's house, and this is the castle of Prince. As the prince has to find Cinderella, that's why I just put a little distance between them, and also a little distance between their houses. In the end, when they will be together, everything will be okay. Their castle will have such kind of red flags. I just asked why. She said because when they are, everything will be in the behind. It means that they will win, and flag is just a symbol of victory. It was very interesting one, and they can even speak about every detail that they have about this fairy tale about the hero and heroine. One of our participants was telling about that fairy tales can be used for teaching grammar, especially for past simple tense and also for adjectives. I want to say is that I also have such kind of, because as I have mentioned, in some activities I have mixed, I have matched speaking with listening, speaking with grammar, or etc. Here I have just read the adjectives and write them in pairs to enhance the vocabulary with adjectives and their antonyms. Some of these adjectives I have chosen from the context, from the text of Cinderella, and try to make an activity in order not to enhance vocabulary, to revise the vocabulary, but also to use it from the grammar point. And after doing it, I have a game with students which gave them an opportunity to represent, to give some kinds of gestures, some kinds of facial expressions about, for example, how would you like if you, for example, are unhappy or beautiful or something new or lazy, and it while they were showing their facial expressions or with gestures, it was first of all very fun and make them laugh. And on the other hand, it gets them to memorize these words and to pronounce, to speak, to use them in their everyday speech more often. About the next activity, put the statement in the correct order. It develop retelling and speaking skills, especially because I have just mentioned some kinds of points in my activity and say, please put in the correct order all these statements, which will give you an opportunity just to know the whole text. And my students say, here we have some, let's say, 5 point statements, but we can have more and more points in order to retell the text. And I said, no, you can just use this as a main point and subdivide some kinds of new points and add some kinds of new points in order to have the full story of the fairy tale. And in the end, after putting in the order, they tell me, and also it gives them a chance to retell the whole story, because all the story, maybe I have just divided into 5 parts, and in the end, they have an opportunity to have the full story and represent it. Find the words mentioned in the text to advance listening and speaking skills through listening, because in this case, I also have chosen some words which may be, for example, here we have a coach, we have, for example, midnight, pumpkin. Every time when they just read, they try to remember some kind of picture or something and try to just find this word in the text and tell it about it. Or at first, before finding the text, I ask them to just express. Have they, for example, for the words of coach, do you have any kind of thought? What is code? Where can we use? With ICQs and CCQs, it's very, very easy just to make them think, to tell, even the answer is wrong, but they try to think what it can be. Or just if we have pumpkin, I just say, have you ever seen the pumpkin? What is it? Can we eat it? Or where is it? Where can we grow it? And etc. And the it, I just try to create some kind of interest towards the topic, towards the word. And in the end, I have just a successful result, let's say effective result, and my students know all these words. What does it mean? And they try to find quickly in the text and to tell me, oh, we have found this text. Can I read this sentence? Or can I tell? I know the story. I know where, in which part this what we can meet, etc. It gives me just confidence that I have an effective result in the end. My students have been taught something new, have learned something new during this lesson, and it will be remembered for many years. And every time when we, for example, we see the white pumpkin, oh, we have met it in the fairy tale of Cinderella. And the next one is about the matching the pictures with their definitions. Here is advanced vocabulary and activate the vocabulary. As we know that from the psychology, the imagination of our students, especially if we deal with the kids, is very, very bright one. And everything can be just remembered with pictures if they have some kind, especially when it refers something that they have never seen. For example, when I have this word fire, one of my students say, I know this, I don't know that the word for this picture was fire, because I know fire from another, from a game, from something, and they try to match them. Or about the dancing, it was very easy for them to find because they know something about dance, dancing bell, etc. Or about the dish or about the bread. They say, we know it's the one trying to show with gestures, with special expression, what the word bread means, but about the picture. But some of my students didn't know that for this picture, we can just match this bread. And it was a very good chance for them just to match, to know this word, and also to represent. because for the first lesson, if I just give new vocabulary with pictures, or either during my further lessons, I try, can you explain me what is the word fat, and he tries to speak to represent it, or just I remember one of my students began to dance when I say, what does the word to dance mean? The verb to dance mean, and he started just dancing, showing, saying that it means it, because as he has mentioned, I don't know really many words in order to explain. Can I show it? And it was very easy one for them just to represent it. Okay, here were some kinds of examples. What do you think about these examples? Are they effective one to use them for teaching, for developing speaking skills through fairy tales? Are these activities effective or not for developing speaking skills? What do you think?
Thank you so much, Alisa. Absolutely, they are effective and useful, and this is what is confirmed by so many participants in the chat who said that Huda Hussein, who said that is very practical activities. We had also Mr. or Mrs. Doe, who said thanks for giving valuable strategies for teaching. So absolutely, they are very, very useful and effective. Maybe we will take just one participant, please. Ms. Nerveen, go ahead, please, but shortly, because we are about to reach the end of the webinar, and the time is very short. Thank you.
Hello. Hello, do you
Hello.
hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Very
Yeah,
short and brief, please. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. I felt this one is very useful, and we frequently use this type of fairy tale in our class. But some of the techniques that Alicia had showed over here had presented us very nice and useful to us. Thank you very much for Alicia and the whole team of this Lta okay, Virtual University. Thank you very much. We are very fruitful to it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rajan. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know, Alisa, if you want to have also one participant, just note that we are about to reach or are out of the time allocated for this webinar.
Okay, thank you. If we have only one participant that wants to share, we can do it in a very short time.
Okay, so then Jamal, the mic is handed over to you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. Just want to say that all these activities, I think it's so helpful and fruitful, and it can help the teacher to achieve his objectives. But I have one question. If you can, are we going to deal all with these activities, or we have to select one activity in our lesson? Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for the question. For example, when I was conducting and choosing this topic and having some kinds of activities about this, I have an experience of having about maximum 3 activities during one lesson. It depends on the duration of our lesson. If we have, for example, about 15-minute lesson, in this case, we can 2, maximum 3 activities we can use. And as if we have, for example, long fairy tales, it makes us just to divide this fairy tale, and according to this division, we can just divide also the activities. For example, if we have 2 parts of Cinderella in this fairy tale, we can use 2 or 3 activities. It depends on the duration and also about the aims of your lesson. What do you, for example, if you have something to teach from the grammar, you can just match them with speaking with listening, or speaking with reading, or speaking with grammar. There are some kinds of peculiarities that you have to take into account while you are using these activities. Thank you. Do you have any questions, other?
Well, it seems that Mr. Moise has a question. Mr. Moise, you can go ahead with your question, please, but short and briefly. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I really appreciate your efforts for this webinar. Thank you very much. Now, my question is, can you please, this goes to the presenter. Can you please share us the slide, please? Is it possible?
Sorry, can you repeat your question? There was some kind of disconnections.
Okay, sorry. I said, can you please share us the slide materials you use for the presentation, please?
Yes, of course. After my session, the moderators can share with you. There is no any kind of difficulties or something that I can't share. Yes, of course.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Moise. Absolutely, we are going to be sharing the recording. Just note that this webinar is recorded, and you can have access later on. You will find it on our Facebook page. So just make sure that you follow the page, and you will find all what has been discussed so far in this webinar available on the Facebook page. Thank you. So it seems that we have reached the end of this webinar, and it's time for wrap up. I don't know if Alisa wants to add something before we wrap up.
Yes, I just want to share some kind of results that we shall get if we use such kind of these activities which designed by us could be really productive, because we could use effective strategies and techniques to further the pupils' proficiency in skills of English. It gives us not only to have a good lesson plan, to have an interesting, but also in the end of the lesson to give more and more knowledge and experience to our students through fairy tales to teach and to learn English language. And also these activities enrich and reinforce the students' speaking skills as well as stimulate the usage of English. I remember now when I asked my students about something, do you remember anything from the fairy tales? Just tell me such kind of things that maybe in some cases I don't remember the detailed episode of something, but they just remember it. I think they will be helpful also for you in future to use and to develop your student speaking skills, matching them with listening, with reading, and also with 4 skills that we have. in order to have an effective and positive results lesson.
Well, I'm sorry, Alisa. I'm afraid we will not be able to have any further comments or questions. And thanks for the participants to share any comments or any questions through the chat thread. And we will make sure that Alisa will review them, and we'll see if possible to answer you in private mode. Thank you.
Okay, I'll be glad to share everything with you. If you have any kind of questions or just comments, you are open, you can write me. There is no any kind of press or something that you can do in any way.
Thank you so much, Alisa. I think that the participants, they have got this. And thank you all the participants for joining us and joining our 20th webinar for today. I hope that you have got answers for most of the questions that have been in your minds before. And I hope that they will be useful, or they're gonna be useful in your future teaching practices. Meanwhile, just let me remind you that you are going to receive the certificates of attendance no later than next Monday. So thank you for being patient. And for those who have been logging in with unknown usernames, kindly try to log out and log in again with your real and proper names so that we can write them down correctly on your certificates. I think it's time for wrapping up. Thank you all for your kind joining and for your time. We do really appreciate this, and we strive here in ELTA to provide you with all the needful resources and the recent practices and elements that you might use in your teaching and learning. Thank you all for your time, and enjoy the rest of your days. Thank you.
Thank you.